Hey there folks, my name is Michael Bertrand, and today I'm going to run some ideas past you people that I'm still working on, but I feel that explaining them to you will help me flesh them out a little. I've stumbled upon a useful binary, one of those there are two kinds of people in the world kind of thing that are very useful as long as you remember they're just an angle through which to examine people and not something that defines everything that they are as a being. And as the title of this talk already told you, it's Whitelisters versus Blacklisters. Now, I'm not talking about any blacklisters anyone might know. What I'm talking about is, I think there are people who do everything that they think of except for a list of things that they don't. They follow every impulse, they go with every emotion except for the very small list of things that they block. And they try and keep that list as small as possible. So they only accept that there are impulses that they need to block or redirect very reluctantly. And these are blacklisters. Now, because they operate like this, blacklisters are probably more impulsive than the average person. But they're also more energetic, and they're more, in a very deep way, free. They might not be the best people for the kind of work that requires discipline and coordination and everything like that, but they have enormous personal energy, and they're very free-spirited and unencumbered people. They do what they want a surprisingly large amount of the time. Contrast that to whitelisters. You've probably already figured out what this means. A whitelister is someone who does absolutely nothing except for the small number of things that are on the acceptable activity list. So these people's default position is to block every single emotion and impulse from action unless it's been very thoroughly examined and declared safe. By which point, obviously, a lot of the time the impulse is dead. And these people are very restrained, obviously, and they can be highly disciplined and they can be highly focused, but they're also very emotionally constipated is the word that comes to mind. They lead restricted inner life, and not a lot of what they think and feel actually gets expressed. And so, while in many ways the world it seems like it's a lot kinder to people who can control themselves and focus and behave, to put it simply. These are also the people that might very well develop a lot of deep psychological issues because they're so wrapped up inside themselves that they can't act on impulse, and when impulse isn't acted on, it dies. Now, obviously, everyone's going to be a mix of both. No one's going to be 100% one or the other. That's the way these things work. I call it a binary, but it's really just a range. A scale, if you will. And I'm sure if you think about people you know, you'd be able to go, well, that person's a bit more of a whitelister than a blacklister, or vice versa. My guess would be that creative people, they tend towards more of the blacklister mentality. They don't like restrictions. They don't accept rules very easily. They're not big on discipline, because that limits their creativity, and they're trying to minimize limitation. You can't be creative if you're sort of stuck in harness. Creativity requires an open mind in order to find those connections that are so important to creativity. Whitelisters prioritize order, because order soothes them, order calms them, and therefore it is useful for essentially self-medicating their tense emotional state that, of course, arises from being such a restrained person. It's possible that you can move along this scale a certain amount. A whitelister could probably learn to relax a little more, and a blacklister can probably learn to be a bit more disciplined, stop instinctively railing at any kind of restriction, etc., etc. But my feeling is that probably your basic temperament is not fixed, but you've only got a certain amount of range that you could possibly move in. Also, note that I'm not saying one is necessarily better than the other. I'm a kind of a whitelister myself. In the sense that I don't act on impulse all that often. On the other hand, I'm highly creative, so maybe I'm a little of both. And I'm sure that I could learn to let go more often and not worry about consequences so much, and so forth and so on. But I'm always going to be basically a cautious person who wants to think things through before he does them. And I'm sure I've looked upon people who are on the other side of the spectrum and felt a kind of envy, because they live lives that are a lot freer. On the other hand, to be blunt, they do a lot more stupid crap than I do. So, takes one half dozen of the other. I'm pretty sure the world needs both. So what do you think, folks? Which are you? Blacklister, whitelister, somewhere in between? Remember, blacklister is someone who does everything that pops into their head except for a small, minimized list of things that they that they know not to do. And a whitelister is the opposite. They don't do anything. They block all their impulses except for the ones that they know and accept. My name is Michael Bertrand, and that's all I got to say for today.